The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders, including, of course, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyhu and his Defence Minister Yoav Gallant. In a statement, prosecutor Karim Khan says he is filling applications for warrants of arrest before the pre-trial chamber of the court for Hamas top leader Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Diab, as well as Ibrahim Al-Masri, a commander of the group's armed wing, for their political Ismail Haniyeh. For more on this, we now cross to our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who is live for us in New York. Sherwin, thank you so much for your time. Of course, this is a big story that we are chasing this afternoon, and I have no doubt that it will have huge global implications. Firstly, perhaps let's start with you telling us what the prosecutor of the International Court, Criminal Court that is seeking arrest warrants for, and more importantly, what the indictment says and what they're being charged with.
Right, so the broader context here is we're not talking about the International Court of Justice anymore, are we, United? We're talking about the International Criminal Court. And the big difference here is that while the ICJ deals with disputes between states, right, Israel, South Africa, the dispute that is within the 1948 Genocide Convention, the ICC, also in The Hague, the International Criminal Court, is based on, gets its powers from what's called the treaty known as the Rome Statute. And they deal with criminal culpability of individuals in terms of international crimes against humanity and war crimes. So what we've seen from the ICC prosecutor today, Karim Khan, the under pressure prosecutor, right, to bring these indictments, is that he says at the beginning of the statement that the court has released today, I am filing applications for warrants of arrest before the pre-trial chamber 1 of the International Criminal Court in regards to the situation in the state of Palestine. And what the most recent situation, as we all know, has been the war in Gaza that was precipitated by the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. Karim Khan says in a very lengthy statement that he's laying out here the charges that he believes the individuals he's seeking indictments for are reasonably considered responsible and culpable for, including the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar. We haven't seen much of Yahya Sinwar. He's apparently been under the underground tunnel network that is prevalent in Gaza today. Also, Mohammed Diab Ibrahim Al-Masri, who is a leader of one of Hamas's military wings, the Al-Qassam Brigades, I believe. And then Ismail Haniyeh, who is the political leader. Ismail Haniyeh has been in political exile in Qatar for years now. And so he's the political thinker behind the ideology that Hamas presents. And Karim Khan, Unati, is saying that he believes that they bear criminal responsibility for the following crimes. The extermination as a crime against humanity, which is contrary to Article 7(1)(b) of the Rome Statute. Murder as a crime against humanity. Taking hostages as a war crime. Rape and other acts of sexual violence as crimes against humanity. Torture as a crime against humanity, other inhumane acts as crimes against humanity, cruel treatment as a war crime, and outrageous upon personal dignity as a war crime. Then, of course, this is also a very, this will have a political shuddering and shaking in Israel as we speak. He also believes that Benjamin Netanyhu and Yoav Gallant, his Minister of Defence, bear criminal responsibility for the following crimes, Unati. Starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, as a crime contrary to the Rome Statute. Willfully causing great suffering or serious injury to body or health, contrary to the Rome Statute. Willful killing, contrary to Article 8.2. Intentionally directing attacks against the civilian population. Extermination and or murder. Persecution as a crime against humanity, other inhumane acts as crimes against humanity. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court was in New York last week. He presented his latest update to the court to the council on the situation in Libya, and we had the opportunity as he walked past, as he entered the council, to say, "Hey, are these indictments coming? When are you going to come and talk to us?" He had his head down, he ignored all media questions, didn't speak to us at all. And of course, this indictment that we now read to you today was clearly brewing in his mind. So a big development here. We, of course, now await broad reaction, right, from the United Nations, who's likely to say the ICC is independent and let the legal process play itself out. But as you well know, there has been great opposition from within the halls of Congress in Washington, D.C., but in particular from U.S. Republican senators against the very indictments that is laid out here today as it pertains to the Israeli leadership. So a big day, certainly, that we are going to watch develop as the state proceeds.
I remember that show, and in fact, I think a statement was then issued, by the prosecutor to stop, the speculation that was going around. Of course, this development is going to be very welcomed by South Africa, for instance, because, they have also approached the ICC last year, December, if you will recall. But, the warrants against the Israeli politicians essentially mark the first time the ICC has targeted the top leader of a very close ally to the United States. So that will be very interesting to watch. Just talk to us then about what are we likely then to see from the Biden administration, particularly just given, what has been centered around what the allies in Israel are doing?
Well, the Biden administration, Onati, has been very clear that they do not believe, contrary to what the judges of the International Criminal Court have decided, that the ICC prosecutor has jurisdiction. But as you know, the state of Palestine has joined the court and has granted the ICC a jurisdiction to investigate crimes that are being committed within the occupied Palestinian territories. And so that is what is very much at the essence here of why this prosecutor has jurisdiction. But as you correctly point out, the Biden administration has said, A, we do not agree with jurisdiction, but we haven't heard specifically from the White House that they will take any action were the ICC to move forward as it has done today. The only person that I have heard from within the administration is a member of the national security team, who is the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. And I asked her directly, are you lobbying on behalf of Israel to the court? And she said, we believe the ICC is independent, whether they disagree or not. It's an independent organization, and they are not trying to influence its decisions. What we have subsequently heard from members of Congress, the likes of Tom Cotton, the senator of Arkansas, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, and Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican senator from Florida, they have introduced legislation within the Senate that would sanction and bar ICC officials from travel to the United States, for example, were they to move forward with this. This is legislation that is mooted. It has not been put to the floor yet. The Democrats still control the Senate, right? Chuck Schumer is the Democratic majority leader in the Senate. It'll be up to him as to whether this legislation sees the light of day. But then you also have a Republican Congress that might also introduce legislation. And so where that legislation might lead, we don't know yet. Will it garner overwhelming support? We don't know the answer to that. This is an issue that has divided members of Congress. You have the progressive liberal wing that is very much against the scenes and the demonstrative inhumanity that has played itself out in Gaza over the last few months. And so there's a big divide. So in terms of what sort of weight the US plays in this affair, is certainly going to meet resistance from countries like South Africa and the majority of countries around the world that have wanted the ICC to put its finger on the scale here due to issues of double standards, right? I mean, the question that was often raised is, why did you move so quickly on indicting the Russian president and his commissioner of children affairs so soon into the war in Ukraine? And yet this investigation is taking so long, despite the fact that our eyes tell us what is going on in Gaza. We can see it for ourselves, given the plethora of video footage that is emanating from the enclave showing the devastation and destruction there. We know that there is starvation. I mean, the UN has talked about, famine conditions wrought by the fact that humanitarians have simply not been given the requisite at-scale access that was required in Gaza. And so a lot of pressure on the ICC prosecutor, threats against the ICC prosecutor, but we've seen him today stand tall. You correctly point out that he made that statement in the council that they will not be swayed by threats, that they will follow the law and that the law will be applied. And he has certainly held firm to his word, Unati.